Hello students. Today many students are preparing for MA English entrance and other competitive exams. Especially when students prepare for the MA English entrance test, they come across many famous books from English literature and authors. And sometimes we also feel difficulty to remember. So here some of the famous important books and authors will help you to remember and to get to know many things from these books. So let us look at the famous books and authors. The Rime of Ancient Mariner by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. It's a poem which was published in the year 1798 in the collection of poems of lyrical ballads. So there Coleridge, he discusses the main theme of the sin and the repentance, because as a part of the poem, the mariners, their crime is killing the innocent bird called albatross. So this is one of the famous poems from the Victorian era. Now second one is Animal Farm by George Orwell, which was published in the year 1945. So this will help you to know what is political allegory. And as a part of this play, a group of farm animals who rebel against human farms. So George Orwell also highlights themes like class, equality and inequality, power control. So as a part of this, and this animal farm has brought great revolution in Russia. Now the third one is David Copperfield by Charles Dickens, so which was published in the year 1850. So this tells about the story of a child. When he grown up, he just looked back on his life, and it is the story of a boy who escapes from his abusive stepfather to find a safe place. So there is another term used is a favorite child in David Copperfield novel. Then the next one is Mother by Maxim Gorky. So in the year 1906 it was published. This novel talks about the revolutionary factory worker, a woman, how she has translated, how she transforms the lives of many workers. And this novel was published and translated into many languages. Next work is, we all know that the familiar work from the William Shakespeare, As You Like It by William Shakespeare, which was we know that Shakespeare was born in 1623. So here, As You Like It, it is famous romantic comedy. So there we come across many of the Shakespeare quotations. The central theme revolves around the play is love, and especially love at first sight. The next work is the famous poem in English literature, that is Paradise Lost by John Milton, which was actually published in 1667, and it is considered as an epic poem and which was written in blank words. So the familiar characters in Paradise Lost are Adam, Eve, Satan, Michael and so many. Actually the Paradise Lost, which was first published in 10 books, but later which was published in 12 books. So the major theme of the Paradise Lost is man's first disobedience. The next novel is A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, which was published in 1859. So as a part of the novel, Dickens, he discusses the two towns, two cities, London and Paris. So Tale of Two Cities, it's an historical novel. So there Dickens, he highlighted the topics or the themes like duality, revolution and resurrection. If we go to the next one, the famous romantic comedy of manners, that is The Merchant of Venice by William Shakespeare. And we all know that the famous, the known characters Antonio, Bassanio, Shylock, right? So if we move to the next work, that is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, which was published in 1813. Jane Austen written just 6 novels only. All these novels rounds around the marriage and the women, middle class. So especially the Pride and Prejudice, the story revolves around a girl in a family of 5 sisters, so who belong to the middle class, and how her emotions, her pride and prejudice keep changes. So the protagonist is Elizabeth Bennet and Fitzwilliam Darcy. The next work is Origin of Species by Charles Darwin, which was published in 1815, and it's a great and famous work during the Victorian era, in which Charles Darwin talks about the origin of the human work. So this is a work of scientific literature. If you look at the next one, The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway, which was published in 1952. It's a famous American novel, and it's a short novel. So as a part of the novel, we'll come to know that the findings a success in failure and finding failure in success. So Hemingway talks about man versus nature. So the important characters in the play The Old Man and the Sea is Santiago, Manolin and Marilyn. Now we'll look at the next one. Man and Superman by George Bernard Shaw, G.B. Shaw. So it is a 4-act drama. So here G.B. Shaw discusses how man and Superman are different. The next work is War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. So it's a literary work mixed with the chapters on history and philosophy by this Russian author Leo Tolstoy. So which was published serially, then it published in a entirely in the year 1869. So and this work is treated or regarded as one of the Tolstoy's finest literary achievements. The next work, Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. So Gulliver's Travels are the travels into several remote nations of the world, so which was written in 4 parts by Jonathan Swift as a part of the play Lemuel Gulliver, who takes 4 voyages, so as a surgeon, as a captain, so in many roles. So the famous place it is called Lilliput will come across as a part of the Gulliver's Travels. Now the next work is God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy. She is an Indian novelist, and this is the first the debut novel by Arundhati Roy, and it is a story about the childhood experiences of fraternal twins whose lives are destroyed by the love laws that they lay down, who should be loved and how. So this becomes very popular novel in the recent times. Next, Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare. We know that Shakespeare was a great poet, a playwright and an actor also. So Romeo Juliet, it talks about the tragedy of the 2 lovers, right? Then the next work is Jungle Book by Rudyard Kipling. It's a collection of stories by English author Rudyard Kipling. So most of the characters in this play are animals. So they shows different principal characters in the part of the play. Now if you look at the next one, Lycidas by John Milton, it is an actually poem, and which is considered as a pastoral elegy. So because Milton wrote this poem, he wanted to dedicate to the memory of Edward King, who was a friend of Milton at Cambridge University. So if we look at the next one, that is Emma by Jane Austen. So as in the previous slide we have also discussed Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. This is another famous novel, and it's a novel about the youthful hubris and romantic misunderstandings. So Emma, who was a matchmaker, and how the novel was set in the fictional village of a Highbury, and it is very important novel for the purpose of the preparation. Now if you look at the next one, that is Odyssey, it is one of the classics in English literature by Homer. Now The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot, which was published in the year 1922. So this is divided into 5 books, and this is a very popular work in the modernism, especially in the poems of the 20th century, and it is places an emphasis on the modernism. Now if you look at the next one, that is Vanity Fair by William Makepeace Thackeray, and this is a very important one because it speaks about many things, so which follows the lives of Becky Sharp and Amelia Sedley, so and their friends and the families after the Napoleon War, right? And this was published in the year 1848. If you look at the next work, that is the very popular and familiar text, that is Robinson Crusoe by Daniel Defoe, which was published in the year 1719. So it's a novel, and the first edition was credited works protagonist of this place Robinson Crusoe, and it talks about the adventures of the great man, that is Robinson Crusoe. So Defoe, he focuses the themes like society, individuality and isolation, so as a part of the play. Now if we go to the next one, that is Sons and Lovers, The Rainbow by D.H. Lawrence. Actually Sons and Lovers, which was published in 1913, and it is a famous novel in the top aspect of stream of consciousness. So this novel talks about the emotions of the youth, right? So then we'll move to the next work, that is Ulysses by Alfred Lord Tennyson. So he belongs to the Victorian era, and this poem talks about the importance of the knowledge, because in Victorian era there was a dilemma between the people, right? So to accept the religion or the science. In that context he writes Ulysses and pays emphasis to the knowledge. Next one is Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett. So this comes under absurd drama, and Waiting for Godot, there are 2 important characters as a part of the play, Vladimir Didi and Istragan Gogo. They engage in a variety of discussions regularly. They were waiting for a Godot, actually he who never comes. Then if we go to the next work, that is Things Fall Apart by Chinua Abe. This is also a very important work from the African literature, and it talks about the many cultural issues in Africa. Then Ogigbo is the protagonist as a part of the Things Fall Apart. If you go to the next one, Silent Woman by Ben Jonson. So this is also a very important work, because Ben Jonson, who was a contemporary to William Shakespeare, and this is a comedy during the Renaissance, and the play is about a man named Dauphin who creates a scheme to get his inheritance from his uncle Moroso. So the plan involves setting Moroso up to marry Epicon, so by disguised as a woman. So this is what the Silent Woman. The next work is Wuthering Heights, it's a famous work by Emily Brand. So this is also considered as a Gothic novel. There are many types of novels in English literature. Gothic novel is one which got attention of the audience. So the protagonist or the important characters in Wuthering Heights are Heathcliff. It is all about the life of Heathcliff, who was a mysterious gypsy, like a person who was adopted in his childhood days. So whom he was adopted, they passes away. Then Heathcliff rises in his adoption family. Then he reduces to the status of a servant, running away when the young woman loves decided to marry another. Then he comes back after some years. Then he wanted to prove himself. So the play takes place in Wuthering Heights and Thrushcross Grange. So this is very important work by Emily Brand for the purpose of the preparation. If you look at the next work, that is The Way of the World by William Congreve. So it's a play, and it is premiered in the early in the theatres in London, and it is widely regarded as one of the best restoration comedies. Then if you go to the next work, Twelfth Night by William Shakespeare. So this is it has another name, Twelfth Night or What You Will. It's a romantic comedy, and it is believed to have been written around 1601 to 1602. So it is written for the entertainment for the close of the Christmas season. So the important characters of the play are Viola and Sebastian. Now if we go to the next work, that is Utopia by Sir Thomas More, it is also one of the classics in English literature. So the other work is Tom Jones by Henry Fielding. So it is the play talks about the history of Tom Jones, a foundling who known as simply as Tom Jones. It's a comic novel by English playwright Henry Fielding, and it is also considered as a Billings Roman and as a picaresque novel, so which was published in the year 1749. Then if you go to the next one, The Alchemist by Ben Jonson, so it is also a comedy, and which was first performed in the year 1610 by the King's Men, and it became very popular. So which was actually written in 5 acts, then and performed in many places. Go to the next one, Tests of D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy. It's one of the famous works of the Hardy. So it's all about a pure woman faithfully presented in a novel by Thomas Hardy, and it is initially appeared in a censurated and serialized version. Later it was published in the form of a novel. Now if you look at the important characters as a part of the novel, like Angel Clare, Alec d'Urberville, Tess Duberfield, John Durbeyfield, so these are the important characters. Now if you go to the next one, that is Scarlet Gypsy by Matthew Arnold. It's a poem, and it talks about it is based on the 17th century Oxford story found in Joseph Glanville's. So it is also an important work during the Victorian era. So next one is The Rape of the Lock by Alexander Pope. So many of the students might have heard the name of this Rape of the Lock, and so it was written in 5 cantos, and it is also considered as a mock heroic narrative poem. So one of the most commonly cited examples how the pride and brings fall down in a human life, that Pope talks about them as a part of the poem. If you go to the next one, The Prelude by William Wordsworth, or Prelude or the Growth of a Poet's Mind. It's an autobiographical poem by Wordsworth, which was written in blank words. Wordsworth was one of the famous poets during the Romanticism. If you go to the next one, that's The Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan. So Pilgrim's Progress, this is also a kind of comedy. It's an allegory, and it was regarded as one of the most significant works of religious theological fiction in English literature, and it was translated into more than 200 languages, right? So the Christian view is highlighted as a part of the Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan. The next work is Oliver's Twist by Charles Dickens. So this is very important. The central theme in Oliver's Twist is good versus evil. So how Oliver, who was an orphan since the birth, so he spends much of his childhood as a child from orphanage. Then with too many children and too little foods, how he grown up. That's Dickens talks about in Oliver's Twist. If you go to the next one, that is Divine Comedy by Dante. It's a long Italian narrative poem, and it comes under a 14th century, and it is also one of the classics. And we will find characters like Kiko, Thomas Aquina, Saint Bernard, right? So these are the some of familiar characters and Divine Comedy by Dante. If you look at the next work, that is Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky, this is also one of the important work in English literature. So if you go to the next one, A Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway, this talks about how Hemingway experiences as a part of the when he was working in the army, especially in Italy. At the time he was actively participated, and he was wounded during the war. Then at the time of the farewell, his experiences he wrote as a farewell to arms. Now the next work is Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer. We know that Chaucer was treated as the father of English poetry, and Canterbury Tales, general prologue to the Canterbury Tales. So there are 29 pilgrims who all meet in a place called Tabard Inn. From there they will go to a place, they'll start their journey to the Canterbury. As this journey, they all decided to narrate 2 stories while going and 2 stories while coming. The best story or the best tale is identified and finalized for the dinner with the host. So this is one of the important poem which was written in the narrative form by Geoffrey Chaucer. Then if you look at Agonists by P.B. Shelley, this is also a very important poem by Shelley which is also an elegy. Then Don John by Lord Byron, this is also important work. And if you go to the next one, Dr. Faustus by Christopher Marlowe. Christopher Marlowe is a famous English playwright, and Dr. Faustus was the moral tragedy. Faustus was the protagonist as a part of the play, and for the pleasures of the 24 years, for how he has destroyed his life for the lust, for the luxuries, for the purpose of the 24 years luxuries. So he sells his soul to Satan. In return, Satan takes his life after 24 years. It's really a great lesson. Many moral lessons was taught through this Dr. Faustus by Christopher Marlowe. Now the next one is A Passage to India by E.M. Forster. This is also a very significant work by E.M. Forster. Then if you go to the next one, that is Samson Agonists by John Milton. So this it's a poem, talks about the famous wrestler, that is Samson, how he lost his life for the sake of the love. especially this Samson was a wrestler. It is a tragedy, and when this work was at the time of the writing, Milton was also blind, and he is the part of the poem. Samson also becomes blind, and finally he gets back to the normal condition to destroy everyone. Then he dies. So it's a great poem and really very interesting one. Then if you go to the next one, that is Macbeth by William Shakespeare. So far we have discussed many of the works by William Shakespeare. So Macbeth is a tragedy, and it is performed in the year 1606. So it is really dramatizes the damaging physical and psychological effects of political ambition. So for the purpose of the power, how people behave, that we will find in Macbeth. Now look at the next one, that is Clarissa by Samuel Richardson. This is also a famous work, and this is the another name for this novel is The History of a Young Lady. So this is the important concerns of the private life. So it deals with the most important concerns of the private life. Each and of will have this private life. So if you go to the next one, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. So there is another name for Frankenstein, that is The Modern Prometheus, which was published in 1818. It's novel and by Mary Shelley. So Frankenstein tells the story of Victor Frankenstein, a young scientist who creates a sapient creature in an orthodox scientific experiment. If you move to the next work, that is Middlemarch by George Eliot. So it's a study of provincial life. It's a novel, and it talks about the many things, the fictional Midland town in England. So this was published in the year 1872. Actually, it was written during the 1771 and 72. So if we move to the next one, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. So it's a famous work in American literature. So Mark Twain, he has covered many things as a part of The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. So if you look at the characters, Huckleberry Finn, Jim, Tom Sawyer, Pop, Finn, so Aunt Polly, these are the known or the familiar characters as a part of the Adventures of the Huckleberry Finn. So dear students, so these are the some of the famous and important works in English and American literature. So for more details you can subscribe my channel, and in the next video we will go with some more books and authors. Thank you and all the best.